Hey guys, today I've got a replay from Rated on DB. I'm playing 45 card Phantom Knight Burning Abyss Orcus list and I'm against Invoked Dogmatica. So in this video I wanted to show a concept of knowing when to use your cards and not just using them because you have them, which is very much so shown in game 2 where I play at the opportune time and it wins me the match. So here my opponent is just drawing some cards and it seems that he's got access to his Invoked package. So he gets his Invoker, searches Invocation, makes a Mechaba, and then he adds Sir Alistair back with Invocation Engrave, and then he passes the turn there. So to me, I'm expecting at least a hand trap from this. If not, then this should be an easy game 1. So, my 6th card, there's no solid starters apart from the rotor here, but I've got a lot of draw power and I have enough power spells where I can just push through 1 or 2 interruptions. So, I start off with a Allure, just so I can see if I can draw into some of the targets on rotor, so I know which ones I need to pick and which ones I don't. And luckily, I draw into a tour guide here. So a tour guide is very essential since it is probably the best starter in the deck, and it gets all my plays going. So right here is a bit of a misplay. I should go with Rotor to search for Kagemucha Knight, but instead I just go straight for the tour guide. My thinking is I can still play on if this gets Macabre here, or if I get ashed or impermed or veiled or anything like that. But the best play would be to search for Kagemucha just so I can have that free level 3 from hand, and this is also going to stick unless I have Veiler. So I proceed to summon out Graph, and I go straight into my Cherubini. Then off the Graph I get the Libic, which is going to get the C out of hand. So now I need to find a way to bait out that Macabre. So I go Cherubini effect, most of the time targeting itself, and I send Farther. This is so it forces out the Macabre here, and he negates a Farther, surprisingly. Me personally, I would have kept it on. Would have let the Farther go through and then just get the Macabre back in the end phase. To me, that just seems very ineffective, especially since you can negate the Cherubini instead, which would have got him a lot more advantage. So in here, I go Rotor for the boots. This is because I have a Shade in hand, so I just set and summon, since I have no traps in grave. And now I got my 2 level 3s for Dante. Now in this situation, this wouldn't be the worst time to Nibiru if he had it, but the fact that he's allowed my tour guide to go through, and allows a Graph to go through as well, to me is saying that he only has a very small amount of interruption, if at all, any in his hand. So I'm expecting maybe a DD Crow or a Nibiru. So here, if he had DD Crow, this would be the most opportune time to use it, since I have a Nightmare Engrave and I can use it at any point. Or when I link off for Dante, a DD Crow for Dante is very big in this deck. So with this, I'm only expecting a Nibiru from hand. So I just play on, expecting a Nibiru, but just ignoring it because I have enough resources just to push through it. So make the blocker. Dante is going to add back Graph, and then Libic's going to summon Seer, and it doesn't die because it's negated before anyone asks. So then I make a Rusty, and then Seer's effect going to get the Dante back. Now at this situation, I should just use Rusty straight away, but because I'm playing like there's no care in the world, I just go off and make a Beatrice for no reason, and this bites me because now he just drops in Nibiru, and now I lost another card in hand, and I also lost for access to Beatrice. So I get the token. I do get the Graph back off of Dante. I chose Graph because I got a lure in hand, and I don't mind banishing the Graph at this point because I feel that I can still push for enough damage for game. And with the draw, I get the Greffer and Nightmare, which is amazing. Which, the Greffer gives you the body, and then the Nightmare is just so much more plus on your opponent's turn, and then on your turn again, if we get to that point. So now I just pitch the Nightmare, summon a Greffer, and then I just go Monster Reborn for the Rusty, and then there he scoots because I have more or less game on field. I can go into Galatea, go off, make a ball sword maybe, or maybe just get enough damage on field to either kill him or get him low enough where it doesn't matter, and then also have maybe that 2 Fog Blades set up for him. So it was just too much for him to handle. So he goes first again, game 2, and looking at our hand, it's very nice. We have a starter card, a interruption, and Allure Darkness is very nice, getting more resources. The Seer is okay, it's not the worst but it's not the best, and Gizmek's very nice to interrupt plays. So my opponent starts using more draw cards again. Pot of Desires goes into Alistair. I made a mistake here from empowering the Alistair because he already has Invocation. In hindsight, I would save it for the Ecclesia or a Macabre on my turn, but the hindsight's 20/20. And we can only learn from these mistakes. So he adds back the Alistair, then he does have the Ecclesia in hand, so he special summons that. He searches for punishment, he sets punishment and passes. I draw the Cloak, which isn't the best, but is another dark target I can banish off of the lure if I need to. So off of the lure I draw a Fog Blade and another lure, which is okay, I guess. And the reason I keep the Cloak over the Seer is because if I draw into a Boots, I can start doing things a lot easier. But the best thing here is I drew the Pankratops, which breaks this board quite well. And this is what I'm on about with using your cards when when it's the most opportune, instead of just using them for the sake of using them. Because in the main phase, I could have easily went Tour Guide, and he could have negated the Macabre or punishment them, and then I'm such at a disadvantage with the amount of cards I have, where he just snowballs because Alistair's a 1 card recurring engine. At the moment in time, he could punishment me here, send the Ash Dragon and get so much more on field, which in all fairness he should have done, because when he gets rid of a Fog Blade, he can't go into his extra deck, but he would have enough damage on field to kill me, which is a mistake from his part, but we all make mistakes in this game. So he starts his turn. He normals Alistair, and I let that go through because I'm waiting for a time where I could go Pankratops, pop a Macabre, he negates with 1 and I negate the other. So he makes the second one here. Then he adds it back, and then he also has a Ecclesia here, which in most cases this would be game, because I don't have much to interrupt with. So now he forces out my Pankratops. So my first instinct is to use Pankratops, and I'm still thinking on target, but as soon as I use it, he then drops a Macabre negate. So this was before I targeted, which by policy you can't really do, but because he made this mistake, I could easily just go Fog Blade on the one he used to negate, and now that means that I could freely pop his other Macabre since he didn't wait for my target. So there's little things like that. If you just catch, you can just win so many more games because your opponent is not playing properly. If he waited for the target, that was his game to lose. Because if he waited for the target, he can negate the Macabre with the one it was targeting, and then Fog Blade doesn't do much. At most, I full blade one of his Macabres, I use Gizmek, he attempts to negate it around full blade the Macabre he's trying to negate, so then loses another card in hand. But anyway, he attacks for some damage, which I don't mind that much. And then I didn't want to Gizmek in the battle phase because he could always just automatically punishment, Sententis, pop the Gizmek, pop the Fogblade, and then his Macabre's back online and can attack. And he's still got the Alistair in hand, which means that he could do a lot more damage with that and possibly get me for game. So then sets one and ends his turn, and in his end phase, this is where I decide to use a Gizmek. This is a bit of a mistake on my part because I probably should have waited until my turn, but this baits out his punishment, which then gets rid of the Hookblade as well. So at this point, I have two choices really. I could normal summon Tour Guide. If he negates that, I just play with the Orcus cards in hand, try and use the Mothman to pitch the Nightmare and go off that way. Or I can just try and bait out of the Macabre using the Orcus stuff and hope I don't hit the Tour Guide. And with this, he hits the Mothman, which is probably the mid of the road rover, because if he hits a Nightmare, I'm in such of a better position because I then still have two cards in hand and a body on the field. But instead, I let him sculpt his hand a little bit and we draw into a skeleton, which isn't the best, but it's still not the worst. And in this situation here, I use Nightmare and he attempts to chain Call by the Grave, but because Nightmare is for cost, he can't target it, and my opponent doesn't realise that he can reset it, and he decides to follow through and banish a Mothman because he doesn't read Gizmek. In any way, this doesn't change anything, his target, because if he targeted for Gizmek, I could just chain it in the situation. Then off the Nightmare, we send the World Wand, which then allows me to get the Nightmare back. And then I also use Gizmek Engrave. So at this point, I could do a few things in the realms of trying to bait out the Macabre. So my thought process was do the Orcus plays and force that out with Dingirsu. So originally my thought process was make Galaterra, get the field spell, and then bait out the Macabre with Dingirsu. But he uses Macabre for the Galaterra, which I respect, because now I can't go to my Dingirsu, and now I need to wait for another Wand Engrave to actually get my Galaterra back. So he decides to negate the Galaterra, which banishes it. But then I just normal summon the Tour Guide, and then I show that I got a target in deck, and then at that point he just scoops. So that's that's me showing how holding your cards for opportune time can mean a lot. Where if I just shotgun that Tour Guide the turn before, there was no guarantee that that Tour Guide was going to go through. Now, me doing the Tour Guide here, I could do a few things, but I still probably wouldn't have game. Or if I did, it'll be yeah, I wouldn't have game, but I would have enough of a presence to push for a lot of damage, because I can go into Cherubini, Graf can get back can summon a Skarm if I have it. Cherubini can send Seer, bring back Graf, then make a Ball Sword, and then just attack for a lot more damage. Or I can go into a Rusty and set up Fog Blades, but at this time I've used Gizmek twice, so I'm very low on card advantage, or cards in deck, I mean. So either way, this wouldn't be game, and if he pushed through and uses the rest of his cards the best he could, he probably would have won this. But just because I have a Tour Guide, it puts me in a very good position. because I can just push for a lot of damage. I can set up maybe 1 or 2 interruptions and he can't really do much. And if this was the variant with the Dragoon, it would be an idea to go straight into Power Plant and then summon the Dragoon, and that will be game by itself, I believe, because you destroy both of these in attack, and that's a lot of damage on the field. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, hope you learned something, and I'd like to ask you if you can like, subscribe, and just give me a comment, see what you want to see next, because it helps me out a lot and gives me motivation to make more of these videos for you guys. So I'll see you next time. Take care.